Kapanch EV kakali electric kabarang spemida katata motors kabapaka bhabanya akin nong ba kumjuru siya kin nong kandong na maru battery ay hadu sa hospa at 2 km. Nadapi kwa ban test drive kaya kakali electric kilaban wan ni showroom jang Frank Motors kabahapo lat korbat hamaw line maulin.
Tata.tv
Ka jingsmat jong gibriu wan pulikot hagni gejok ka bamunta ka lahir kensan na gejungwan jong gejok ka rinsan social media. Secretary Katnat kam sign parthe ubaderu director jong tourism uba Cyril Darlong Dengdo IS ulaong ba hagni gejok ka bamunta ka don gejing tinjo bha hagaba yedei bar gejing puli yakikot na gejungwan herthma gejok social media lingba ka mobile laptop kibasuk banyo tang shui klik tok da kishim priakti Uba Cyril ulakam hagajing pelat yakakot mandatory poison and other Shillong things mendakasngi hagajing elang haga seminar hall jong State Central Library Shillong. Uba Cyril ulang ba kakamram ginong thokot kamdei tang ban pinsno tenat yakinong puli hendai ban ai mensimru yakiwe ginong thokot. Ula gentu yakibreu ki badon yakasap ban thokot ban mi shakmat ban penongkam yakasap bad yakajing ruspa jong gari ban jong jela. Shua yakani layo ru yakajing kren no ba kel taryang IS retired no lor kiwe layo ru yakajing duai nagamda ka rikasi na ka napi sabet keshing taryang bat ka Alicia Minso kala donru ka jing penina mikidur hagani gesngi.
Okay, it really stayed with me. The detective genre, the genre of writing, which was very accessible, which was very joyful, very pleasurable to read. And when I think back and I sit here today at this very State Central Library and look back, I must say that the students today are fortunate that you have today many writers from this very city of ours, this region of the Northeast, this state of ours, who are writing about our land, our place, our people. Because if I look back at 97, 98, I don't remember having discovered a lot of accessible literature. There must have been literature, there must have been books, but maybe not the books that a young student would read. And if you see Professor Bukika's last chapter in the book, which is really an agenda for what should be next, she talks about the creative scene in Shillong, and she is proud to say that so many writers today are from Shillong. They're writing different kind of books, and many of them are indeed from her school of Loreto Convent. And she's, as a proud Loreto Conventite, she's urging people to write, and she's saying that how Shillong has really transformed as a capital for fiction and literature. We have, many great writers from this region who are still writing, from Janice Pariat to Anjum Hassan, Daisy Hassan, Ankush Saikia, Professor Desmond Karmoflam, Mr. Kimpam Singh Nongkundri, who has just released a book a few days ago. And, such great literature is coming out of it. And I wish that as a child, when I was growing up, I had access to this literature. I'm sure today I have that access to that literature, but as an adult with work, it's not as easy or as simple. Perhaps many of you who are young here, who are students or who are fellow writers, I think the job of a writer is not only to give pleasure in terms of the pleasure to the reader, but to inspire other writers. That is what I feel one should take out of book launches and book readings, because it's really not only the acknowledgement of the effort that the writer has put into the work, the honesty to put the thoughts into writing, which we can all relate to, but the fact that writing should also inspire others. It should be accessible and inspiring. So I must say we live in great times where there's great literature coming out of Shillong, of our region, of our beautiful state. And it is important indeed that we read. That we read first. That whatever we can lay our hands on, we read. Today, the challenge to reading is much more, it's gained much more momentum because of the fact that we live in an age where it's easy to just read from a mobile phone, to scroll through social media and just to hit likes and, or unlike, give short comments. So, it's important that people who can write and who should write, like Professor Bukika, do write. Because many people who can write don't write, or they don't have the time to write. But it's important that, especially young authors and aspiring poets and writers, please write. That's what I would say. Please write, Please take inspiration from others, because in this fast-paced space where we want to just read quick things, the nuances of the culture, the richness of our history, of our language, of Shillong type of English, which is unique to our place, is lost. It's not there, and I'm so happy and glad that this book is out. As Director of Tourism, I can only say that I will definitely recommend this book to all tourists, and we will see how we can take this book so that it reaches larger audience. In my capacity as director, I'll do whatever is possible to make sure that this book reaches a much more larger audience. We have this great store called the Meghalaya store in New Delhi, which has a lot of events where we also encourage authors and artists to release their books, release their songs, release their paintings. I'm sure that we can think of those activities because we need to reach a larger audience. Taryan was mentioning, writing a book is not easy. And yet, it's something that Professor Taryan has held close to her heart. When she welcomed us a few minutes ago, she said if she didn't write this book, it would have exploded. And I'm so glad that she wrote this book and it didn't just stay in her mind or explode in her heart or in her mind. And that we as readers, as fellow Shillongites, as people of this beautiful state, as tourists, as friends and family members can come together, listen to those great readings that we heard today, and enjoy this book for the beautiful message that it brings to all of us. As some of the other speakers have said, the book is indeed very candid, very honest. It is as it should be said. It's something that may sound easy, but it's not easy. As an author, sometimes when we write books, we bring in our notions of what is an interpretation of what we see. And yet when we read this book, many of the Shillong things in this book, we laugh and we smile, and we know how honest it is because we can relate to that book. That is the beauty of this book, that you can relate to it as a reader. As a fellow Shillongite, as a fellow Meghalayan, you know what the author means when you're reading this. And I'm sure, although Professor Bhikika has written this book, in her introduction it says for tourists to come, for them to understand and get a flavor. So that it's not something merely a directory, a listing of hotels, a listing of places to visit, Wards Lake, Elephant Falls, etc., etc. But to really understand the nuances, the culture, the language, the literature of a place. And this book has it all, I must say, from poetry to the personal memoir of the city. And there's even a chapter on some of the words that Shillongites use, called Shillongish. So it's really something that I found very beautiful and very honest, and I'm sure it's like a gift that she has given to all of us. So I must congratulate Professor Bhikika for this great effort. Coming back to thinking of what I should say when I was just thinking in my mind when I was coming to this place, the great Argentinian poet and author, Jorge Luis Borges, whom the economists describe as the greatest writer never to have won a Nobel Prize, wrote, and I quote, "I always imagined paradise will be a kind of library. Today we are at the premises of State Central Library, a treasure of books. And it brings me back to memories because it is here during my school days in the years 99, 98, 97, when I would walk from Laban during the winter holidays and come to the library here and try and discover new writings, new books. The thirst for spending my winter holidays, as Taryan was saying, it's cold, you want to read a book, snuggle in bed, and my house wasn't too far. I came walking and I must, it brings me good memories because I discovered in this library a great book, a great, set of stories that I devoured in one entire winter. It was a thick book. It was written by Satyajit Ray, who's famous for making films, but he had written a great series called Feluda, which is a detective series, a detective from Bengal, and this detective solved a lot of mysteries, took me to places as diverse as Rajasthan, to parts of India, and as a young boy, as a student growing up in Shillong, not having been exposed